Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome. You're tuned into Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, NBC News, CNBC News, and NBC Sports Radio Station, AM 1050, FM 106.5, the station that leaves no listener behind, home to the Asian Oprah, and celebrating 25 years, number one talk in the IB. I am Dr. Marissa and welcoming you to this show about hope and happiness. So there's no gossip, no scandal, no K-words, no Kanye talk at all. Instead, I want you to focus on your own reality show and how you can be happy 88% of the time. And if you've missed any of my past 1,150 something shows, so grateful to have been on for 624 consecutive weeks. Next week, we'll be celebrating, 12 years.
Where does the time go?
My recall sucks. And just go please subscribe on my YouTube channel so you can get access to all of those wonderful episodes, wonderful people, wonderful guests, and wonderful co-hosts. And today is no exception. It is Thursday because it's Straight Talk with Dr. Marissa and
James Hawthorn. Hi, everybody.
So glad to have you. And let's just jump into having breakfast with our guests who are coming, and I see eyeballs rolling in. If you're driving and listening on the AM 1050 side, please do not chat. But once you land wherever you're going, go to my YouTube channel, and that way you can stream live with us and also chat and have breakfast with us, which is my morning blisscipline or good life habit. 8 things that you're grateful for on top, and we're going to do it quickly and just do a one-word gratitude today. And then the bottom of the bun is 8 things that you're grateful for inside, which I call appreciations. It's also a way for the co-hosts and I to catch up on what's been going on. So, James, what are you grateful for this morning?
I am grateful for streaming services. How easy it is to find just about any movie or show you want to see. And a lot of times you're already subscribed because you're so, you have this cell service or you have that cable service or you're an Amazon Prime member. I just love the ease of being able to find great entertainment for those nights at home and you don't feel like going out.
I am grateful for paved roads.
That's a good one because I always find myself cursing the road conditions in LA. I got a flat tire just the other week driving out through the Inland Empire. That was quite the adventure. Be careful out there, folks. Keep your eyes on the road. Apparently, LA has the second worst road conditions in the country next to the state of Mississippi.
Oh, I was
interesting fact because I was looking it up. I'm like, is it just me or is it really as bad as I think it is? So, yes, I'm grateful for paved roads. But boy, I wish that we would smooth out some of those potholes.
Your gratitude?
One
word?
Cheap oysters.
I'm grateful for refrigerators.
That's true. It's very true. I'm grateful for heat and eat delicious meal services for when I don't feel like cooking.
I'm grateful for hair dryers.
I'm grateful that my dog doesn't shed all that much because it's my allergy season and oh boy.
I am grateful for allergy medication. All right,
Amen.
Let's go to the bottom of the bun. The bottom of the bun is gratitude turns inwards. I want you to exercise your ability to approve of yourself, to care for yourself, to love yourself. That is the hallmark or foundation of good mental health, which I'm an advocate of. So I'm forcing you to practice. We're actually going to model for you what we want you to do tonight before you go to bed. If you're really blissciplined, you can plug your phone in another room so you're not doing MS, meaningless scrolling before you go to bed, which usually is bad news or some shocking stuff that you will not fall asleep with. or getting mad at someone or someone mad at you, instead of doing that, this is what we'd like you to do is, what do you like about yourself? I like that I continue to sing. And I made it into the next round of the karaoke competition. I won that top 7 slot.
Congratulations. I love
Thank
that.
you.
I love that. In stark contrast to the heat and eat meal service gratitude that I offered before, I like that I took the time to really learn how to cook, because I love making food for people. And I'm pretty darn good at it, according to them. And it brings me so much joy to be able to prepare food for folks. I think it's the Jewish mother in me. I have one of those. And what can I say?
I actually I had a Jewish grandmother. My mother was unofficially adopted by my grandma Anna, who was Russian Jews, escaped during the time when Germany was attacking Russia, and so she came here, and she was a very good cook. I stayed with her doing my dissertation, my last year of my grad school, and in 9 months I gained 19 pounds. So I had to move out.
So, hey, too much of a good thing, right?
It was amazing. I appreciate that I am a huge law of attraction student, and that it's been working. I got a call out of nowhere, or a contact actually through email. There's an app out called Uptime, and it is a kind of like a hack, distilling books and teachings. And so they contact me, asked me to be on their editorial page. And yesterday, or the day before, I got released to 11 million users on that app. So I'm very, very, very appreciative of I know that came because I don't try to control, or manipulate numbers. I am all about build it and they will come. If you build it, they will come. Field of Dreams. So
that's so funny. That's exactly what I was watching last night. Speaking of streaming services, and how I wanted to show my friend that movie, and that's exactly what we started watching last night. I love that film.
That's like synchronicity right there. That's
There
a
you
what
go.
pot.
Speaking of which, one thing, disclaimer before I go into that. If you see me do the great Houdini disappearing act and turn off my mic for a hot second, it's to blow my nose, which I imagine I'm going to have to do many times during this hour, because my allergies are on one. And if I disappear for a moment, don't worry, I didn't fall out of my chair. Probably.
I appreciate that.
So just for those that might be watching or listening at home. Speaking of Field of Dreams and movies, I like that I'm able to be deeply moved by art. It helps remind me of some of my favorite parts of being a human being. And I love that movie in particular. I always get choked up over Dad, You Want to Have a Catch. And I've always contested that it's a secret faith-based movie. I'm not particularly a religious person by any stretch of the imagination, but it really encourages you to think about things that are bigger than yourself, to believe in things that maybe are illogical, and to trust those callings that come to you from whatever source. And I think that's such an important message or lesson as we go through the daily grind. So I am so moved by that. It always gives me the goosebumps to see this guy go build this field and go on this crazy adventure. And then it all comes full circle in the end. It's very, very beautiful message. And it touches me deeply every time I watch it. And I've watched it like 30 times. So I like that I'm able to be moved by art, because it takes me out of the daily grind.
Beautiful. Last appreciation. I appreciate my attributing to myself that I know more than I think I know. So that's a huge learning. I think that when you are told when you're a kid that you don't know anything, and that message gets ingrained, and so you're looking for answers outside of yourself. And you sometimes get in trouble that way because you have people who say that, you need this, you need that, and you need that. And I've been burned money wise that way. And so one of the things that I keep learning is I know more than I think I know, and that I have access to the creative energy of a friendly universe. And I just have to meditate every day and tap in, and remarkable things begin to happen. So I appreciate that. Final one, James.
I'm going to piggyback on yours. You just made me swap out my third because of what you said. For me, it's knowing when to follow which parts of my knowing self, knowing when to follow my logic and when to follow my intuition. And I've had to really learn to trust and lean in to, honoring my emotions, trusting my intuition, and not always defaulting to robot logic mode, and also trusting that I don't always have to make the right decision, that I'll be able to adapt if I stumble along the way. And I like that I've finally found the courage and developed the skill set to do that.
Beautiful. And to think you didn't like doing the bottom of the bun.
I've learned so many things about the bottom. It's terrific.
Yes, I forgot to say that I liked it on the bottom. But anyways, here we go. Thank you for joining us for breakfast here on Take My Advice. I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show, home to the Asian Oprah, NBC News Radio, and our very special Thursday series called Straight Talk with Dr. Marissa and
James Hawthorn, the now cleanly shaven James Hawthorn. I like to keep everybody on their toes for those that watch the show.
I like it. I definitely like it better. Sorry, but I like clean shaven, so you look cuter, younger, and hotter than you do normally. How's that?
Thank you very much for that. My mom says the same thing, which is creepy to hear those words come out of my mom's mouth. But, I think the moral of the story is that if I was going for women, if I was a straight man, I would go with this. But all my friends say, James, you look better with the beard. So if I'm going for guys, I got to grow out a little stubble, a little scruff.
Well, you're changing it up today. What can I say?
There you go.
Rumors are Dr. Marissa and James. Thank you for joining us for breakfast. And know that if you do this daily discipline for 28 consecutive days, you will sandwich your day in the most positive way. And that's what we want for you. Thank you. All right, and it's that time for the topic of the day. I got to get a drum roll sound. What is the topic for today? I'm just going to say the line that I don't even know if I posted it, but I came up with it this morning. I put it on the story, which I thought was super funny. Relationships. Do your ships just pass through the night?
That's a good way to put it. I would.
I love playing with words.
Yeah, if I had to put it into one word, I would. I'm going to call it independence. How much is it good to do together versus how much independence is it healthy and should you have in a relationship? And I would love to hear from the Cashew Gallery on, where they fall out on a few of these things. Like, is it important to like each other's friends, to like each other's family? Is how many shared activities and interests do you need to have together? If you just like spending time together, is it important? I think that there's lots of fodder for discussion around that topic today.
Yes, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it because, I'm dating. I'm sticking different parts of my body in the dating pool. And it's been interesting because a lot of the people that I'm matching with are, interesting enough, Taurus and Leos, and they like hiking, which is one of the things that is just like, I'm allergic to hiking. I just don't, I love nature. I'm out on the water every week because I live on the beach, because I love nature in the water, but I'm not crazy about dirt camping. I did it once. I do everything once, and that was it. And there's just no part of walking in the dirt that is fun for me. So
But
it's
I have to tell you, I don't think it's such a big deal that all these guys seem to like hiking and you don't. I think a lot of people just feel pressure to put that on their profile if they live in Los Angeles, because it's like, if you don't hike, are you even in Angeleno? I feel like a lot of people just feel pressure to
really,
put that on their profile to seem more appealing or attractive. I have that suspicion.
really, like
Yeah, because they go,
what?
look at me. I'm sporty. I'm active. I'm fit. I like nature. These are all good things. So I'm just going to throw it on the profile. Even the last time I went for a hike was during the pandemic, right? I think some people might be fudging the details a
All
bit on
right,
that one.
all right. Okay, and because it is for me, that's the most interesting part of the question, is because I am literally having to decide whether it's worth my time to even meet in person,
Right.
and if they love like in because most people, if they are working a 9 to 5 job 5 days a week, then their downtime is less than their work time. So in that downtime, if they want to do something that they love and you don't love it, where's that glue, right? You know,
Right.
and how much glue is necessary? What's the minimum amount of glue that you need to keep the relationship healthy?
Right. I mean, I'll give you an example. We also talked about the dangers of like reciprocity for the sake of reciprocity. And I think we had a good debate, a disagreement, if you will, over it. And I believe that sometimes reciprocity is not always healthy, or compromise is not always healthy. Sometimes you just do things because you love the other person and want to do it. But when you have limited time, if both parties are working, in this day and age of 9 to 5 is really sometimes 50, 60 hours a week because of commuting and stuff like that. What are those non-negotiables? And one thing that I kind of beat myself up over, I might have to reframe that for the things I like about myself, bottom of the bun breakfast, is, call me judgy, but if I'm on a date with somebody and they're just not into like good food, like they eat to survive rather than truly enjoying a meal, I find myself looking at them like, what is wrong with you? And it's one of the things that I'm like the most judgy about, because good food, good meals, to me, it's a time to bond. It's a time to appreciate fully your two of your senses, taste, smell, and it just forces you to slow down, captive audience moment, have a couple hours to just decompress and really dive in deep, get to know one another, and enjoy like delicious food. And people that are like, all right, let's eat. Where's the check? What's the next activity? I'm like, no, this is the activity. So that almost, at this point, I feel like it's almost a non-negotiable for me. If somebody doesn't enjoy sitting down and taking their time over a really good meal, and
I'm
I feel
surprised
kind of
we
judgy that's a thing for me.
well that, I let's two moose I want to put on the table. One is, when you know what your preferences are, that's not being judgy. So everyone has a right to their preferences, and this is where, as a diversity consultant, sometimes people misunderstand what valuing diversity is. So it is not liking everything. You have a right to your preferences, and everybody's different, right? So if you enjoy something and someone else doesn't enjoy it, it's just not a match. It doesn't mean they're bad or wrong. It's just not a match. So for you, you're looking for someone that matches you on that indices called foodie, right?
Right.
The deliciousness of life is how I call it. I post, on being one with my food. Not all the time, but it's kind of funny. But it's true. I love, and I'm surprised we haven't gone out to have a meal together, because that is like my probably number one. Well, no, number one is, do you like orange haired Cheeto leaders? And if the answer is yes, then that is definitely a no. And then the second one is, I do look for foodies, because it's not that, and some people think foodie equals fat or not fit or, eat in excess. And That's not true at all. You know, I just enjoy the taste, the variety. There's nothing better than having, there's only one thing better than having really good food, and that's sharing it with someone and them going, oh my God, you're right. That
Yes.
just makes my heart sing,
Me
right?
too. When I talked about how I love that I really learned how to cook, especially if I make the meal, that's great. Or if I can introduce, I love being a guide to what I consider to be the finer things in life. If I can turn people on to a great movie, a great meal, a great destination, it really warms my heart. For some reason, I like taking a leadership role in that part of my life. It really brings me much joy when I can introduce experiences to other people. So this one might be surprising. While food is a big deal for me, and if they're not into having a nice meal or appreciating good food, what's not necessarily a big deal to me would be like travel. I personally have a need to explore and see the world in a sense of adventure. And if they're like, what's the big deal? I don't, flying's a hassle. I don't like being uncomfortable in a third world class. I say Caribbean. I think beauty, beaches, scuba. If someone else goes, heat, sweat, mosquitoes, international travel, what's the point? Let's just stay at home. I'm okay with that because I have friends that like to travel that I can do that with and share that experience with. As long as when I come home, they have an interest in, tell me all about your trip. And as long as we can have that like download after, and I say, well, what did you do? I was God, tell me about it. And we have a great bonding over that time apart.
Mhm.
I'm okay with it. That said, I think I would feel a little bit of remorse or pity if I have this life-changing trip and they can only understand it up to a point because they weren't there to experience it. I don't know if that would be a deal breaker, but I would certainly feel a sense of like, well, now there's a part of me that you're never going to fully know. But I think at the end of the day, I'm okay with that because you can't be somebody's everything. Your romantic partner might fill some of those needs, but for other needs, you call your sister, your brother, you have a friend that you do those things with. And in that way, I think that understanding that about yourself and about relationships can make independence, a certain amount of independence, a very healthy thing.
Mhm.
Because we
Mhm.
shouldn't expect our romantic partner to be everything for us. That
Yep.
then starts to go into codependency.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, that you complete me bullshitaki,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So it's interesting. This whole area of travel is the reason I started dating again after 7 dry, no relationships, no dating years. I'm calling it the reverse 7-year itch. So it is because I realized this last trip when I was in Australia and New Zealand, which is when I pulled out Bumble for the first time in 7 years, because I saw the value in the shared experience of seeing places for the first time, that it was enhanced if you were with someone special. And so that is, thank you for reminding me that that should be, not should, but it would be useful for me to have travel versus couch potato, right?
Right.
So if you are a couch potato, there's nothing wrong with you sitting and watching and stream. Well, I'll be a little judgy, but my preference is that you have that curiosity or ability to expand into new things, new countries, new cultures, new food. All of that is a deal breaker for me because, again, not that they're ignorant or stupid or small minded at all. They just are more comfortable. Their security and their good feeling comes from staying put, right? Staycations and snuggling and watching streaming, which I like to do, but not all the time. Like I
Right.
have maybe 2 times a week max.
Right.
Then 2 times a week, I want to be going out and doing something together that's fun.
So I
So
feel like when we talk about a healthy balance, is it enough to like, because sometimes, right, opposites do attract. And I think some of the appeal, at least for me, when I find myself attracted to people that are very different from me, is I almost look at it like a puzzle. Like I want to figure you out and understand you, because I'm a very curious person, and I find that project of figuring somebody out and understanding them really alluring. It attracts me. And I also look at it as an opportunity for growth, right? I might end up learning some new things about myself by venturing to do some of those things that I didn't think I would like all that much. So, I don't want to say that you have to have all these things in common, because if I say that, I'm then also saying that opposites should never be together, because it doesn't work. Right. So, is it enough to have just a couple of activities that you like to do together? And is it enough to prioritize a chunk of time each week where you do those two things at least like once a week, and you spend that quality time together? Is that enough? I think it
yeah,
can be, depending on what each person's needs are for time together in a relationship.
yeah, it's so funny. I just did, I love researching just in time research, and I just put in how similar should people be to have a good relationship, and what comes up. Find my glasses. Some researchers have found that being open to experiences, agreeable, and conscientious all bode well for relationship quality, but the findings generally are not as strong as those with neuroticism. When asking people what traits they value most in partners, the answer is loyalty and honesty. So similar experiences is is not necessarily. Let's see this next one. Oh, here's your opposites attracting. There is little, if any, evidence for opposites attracting. Relationships are more likely when couples share similar height, weight, alcohol use, values, attractiveness, ethnicity, politics, and religion. Interesting.
So
Isn't that
maybe
interesting?
maybe over time, in the beginning, it's okay to, you know, lean into an opposites attract situation. But my theory on that is, as time goes on, maybe there's like a glass ceiling over how much intimacy can develop if you're too far apart on too many things. I totally get like alcohol use, things like that. That can cause a real rift because people's personality, changes depending on how inebriated they become, and also the kinds of things you like to do when you're inebriated definitely changes. And so over time, there could be a barrier there if one person's totally sober and the other person likes to imbibe quite a bit. I think there's certain things. I think it might be fun to discuss some of the things where it's okay if you're on other ends of the spectrum from one another,
Yeah,
and other things
yeah,
where it's like, good luck. For me, the food things doesn't seem like a big thing, but that's like a deal breaker. But
right, right.
travel, which you would think would be a deal breaker, isn't necessarily for me.
Interesting. So, if you've just tuned in and wondering what's going on in studio today, this is Dr. Marissa, and Get Balanced. Take my advice. I'm not using it. Very special Thursday special series called Straight Talk with Dr. Marissa, and
You're freshly shaven James Hawthorn, for those who are
you're
listening and
on
need to imagine that.
you're on KCAA AM 1050 FM 106.5 NBC News Radio, home to the Asian Oprah, streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher. Did I do that already at the beginning? I forget when I don't remember rattling through the other streaming.
I don't
Uh,
think you did that today.
oh, wow. That's the first time I've forgotten. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, Audible, Amazon Music, Tiki Live, Rumble, Podchaser, Streaker, Spreaker, and more. And we are number one talking the IE and trying to be number one everywhere. And because I'm just slightly competitive, it's not whether you win or lose, it's whether I win or lose. And this is the station that leaves no listener behind, 25 years strong. So glad that you're here. I see some eyeballs rolling in. The topic today is, do your relationships just pass through the night? Speaking to the idea of independence, how similar or different can a relationship be? Are there any guidelines, any rules? And that's what James and I have been talking about. And I have to say, based on your last comment, I did did not go for a second date with someone who had a love for red wine. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with getting a little tipsy on a date. But I'm sober 15 years. It doesn't bother me per se. Like it does, like I'm not craving when someone else is drinking, but knowing that that's a part of what makes him happy, right? And it doesn't make me happy to always be a designated driver or, kind of watching someone get drunk. That's just not what I like to do. So it's not a match. And
Right.
so that is something that I had to, okay, that's important. And therefore, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go on a second date with him. Another guy example was, he was an avid Saturday morning bike club, through the streets of whatever. And that's a major fun function, I think, for someone who, gets his exercise and fun and there's social aspects of that. And if I am not interested in picking that sport up, I think that is a deal breaker because that's why I opened with the hiking thing. Because if hiking is really important to you, I'm not your girl.
Right. I mean, I think it depends how much time you have in the day. If you both have incredibly busy schedules and you're not matching on at least a couple activities that you can do together each week, I feel like there's a glass ceiling over how intimate you can become. But I also think there's strategies for navigating that. Let's say that you both are healthy, active people, but don't like any of the same activities. For example, let's say one partner loves to swim and the other loves to do CrossFit. Maybe it's a thing where you just schedule it so that it's at the same time. So you're like, all right, honey, enjoy your swim. I'm dropping you off at the pool. I'm going to go do CrossFit, pick you up in an hour. And maybe it's one of those things where you're both doing the thing together and that you leave together. This is especially true for couples that maybe live together. And if you don't live together, it could be, hey, let's go get our workout in. I'll come pick you up and then we'll go to dinner. So it could be one of those things where you are still going out together to do the thing, but one person does their preferred activity, the other does the other. Or even if you're going to the same fitness club, one might jump in an aerobics class or do a Pilates session, and the other might be lifting weights, but you go together, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I think the idea of balance, like you were saying before, it's all about balance. I keep saying that because that's my brand. If you have nothing in common, and that's what the scenario that Don Miguel Ruiz says in Mastery of Love, where I get a lot of my relationship advice. And I put this in my book is, if you want a dog, don't buy a cat. So if you know that you don't smoke, you can't stand smoke, you love to travel, and you love good food, you do not want to pick someone who smokes anything, like even socially, if they are couch potatoes and they love being couch potatoes, and 3, they eat the same thing every day or drink powdered stuff and eat bars for sustenance because that's all food is to them. That is not a match. But many women, in particular, not just women, but many women, and you can speak to the gay community, and maybe this is true for them. Not that I want you to speak on behalf of all of them, But
I wouldn't
it
want to either.
does, but it does seem like many women that come for relationship coaching with me, and I ask them, when did you know that this was the way they are? Right? Oh, when I first met them. It's like, well, then why, if you knew it was like this, why would you even proceed? Oh, he was so cute, or oh, he was
The
really great
sexual
in
chemistry was
bed.
amazing, or they're just so intriguing to me, even though we don't have that much in common. Like I said, opposites can be intriguing and attractive and can bring you in. But I like your advice that if you're trying to increase your odds of a long-term relationship, that's probably not the best strategy. But if you're just looking to date for fun and get to meet a variety of different people, go for it. You never know. You might be surprised. Well, with this caveat, I would consider entering, or pursuing seriously relationship with somebody that has a lot of different interests, as long as they're open-minded. I'm like, well, you don't have to like what I like, but would you at least try it? Are you down to give it a shot? Because somebody who doesn't have a sense of adventure or who's closed-minded, that's something that I have a immediate visceral negative reaction to, which I think makes more sense than me just having a visceral, you don't like food, get out of here. But that's
Hmm.
another strong one for me. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, as long as they're open-minded and willing to try stuff, I'm not going to hold their feet to the fire to like it, but I certainly would love somebody to have a sense of adventure, to give it a shot.
Yeah, yeah. There's a theory that says the reason why opposites are attractive is that they have something that deep inside maybe you want to emulate or want to learn. And
Yes.
extroversion, introversion is one of those things. Like introverts who, and the definition actually from Myers-Briggs is not nothing to do with shy. Introverts get their energy by being in isolation or on their own, and extroverts get their energy from being in a social situation where they feed off of other people's energy. That is the accurate definition. So it's nothing to do with party animal versus shy person. It's where you get your energy, and that is one of those differences that I see many relationships fall apart, because at first it's kind of cute, right? Or it's kind of like, oh, they're getting me out of the shell. I've always wanted to, be more sociable and get out there. But in time, many relationships I see fall apart because they now resent that difference, right? Oh my God, going out again. We just went out, 3 days ago, and I need my time. I need my space. So that opposite track, I don't know if that's necessary, a helpful adage,
You know, some
right? For a good
sometimes
relationship.
sometimes independence can turn to incompatibility. So I think, you have to be honest with yourself about, well, if this person never comes around to want to go out this often or never wants to travel, am I really okay with that? And then how do you navigate that? So, for example, let's say you both can agree on a place that you'd like to visit, even if your experience when you go there is going to be very different. So you might decide, well, all right, we'll go to the Caribbean, but I don't want to be in a separate villa out there. Like I want the all-inclusive resort experience. Well, okay, I'm down with that as long as you do some activities off, the island. And even if you're off the resort, and even if you don't agree, you might go on an all-day scuba diving adventure. And your partner might say, you know what, enjoy that. I can't wait to hear about it. I want to do an all-day spa day. Meanwhile, if I were to do that, I'm in the spa just thinking about all the adventures and nature and beauty that I'm missing by being pampered at the spa. I would be going out of my mind. So it's like, you do that, I want you to have the best day. Great, you do your scuba diving, I want you to have the best day. And then you have dinner together and do a download on your awesome days, and then you're both on this trip together. You're experiencing enough of it together to have a bonding moment over it, or laugh at this silly thing that you saw at the resort or whatever it might be. So I think there are ways to navigate it. Just like the example I gave of, okay, we're going to go work out now, but you're going to go do your thing for an hour and I'll do mine, but we're going to drive to and from together. And spend that time together and share it in that way. So I think,
Mhm.
you know, degree matters and can make a big difference and can help people that do have different interests navigate that
Yeah.
without it
Yeah.
becoming something where your partner just completely disappears and you're like, I don't know what they're doing. Right.
Right. Right. I met a couple who came to my Tai Chi class when I used to have time to teach my balanced Tai Chi going on the beach. And they came to the class, and I learned that the husband really didn't want to do it, didn't want to be there, but they have a point system in their marriage, and have been married 30 some plus years. I don't know when they started the point system, but when one of them really wants to do something that the other one doesn't want to, they have a, a, a what a currency system where she cashes in some of her chips that she got when she did something that he wanted to do and she didn't want to do. She got some tokens for that, and then she cashed in her tokens and made him come to my class. But it worked. I mean, they've been together for 30 some years, right? And it's just an acknowledgement that, hey, I'm doing this because you did something for me that you didn't want to do. And they
Yeah,
just visualize it with the thing. And it's such contrast to, if you loved me, you would,
it is,
right?
because you're
That
not holding it over their head. And this is an example where I think like systems like this can be really healthy. And I know I said earlier that, reciprocity just for the sake of it as a value, it maybe isn't a good thing, and compromise, just doing it because you were told compromise is good, is not, because if both people are compromising, nobody's fully happy. But this point system thing I like because it's a mechanism to avoid independence leading to resentment or independence leading to incompatibility. And sometimes we need help. We need to use these tools. And these sorts of tools can help people avoid having to go to couples therapy when resentments, do build. So my initial reaction is, that takes all the spontaneity and fun out of it. But no, we are deeply flawed, all of us. And that's not a bad thing. We just have to acknowledge that. Like, we're all working through our stuff. And so sometimes having systems in place can be really helpful and keep us healthy in the building of our relationships. So I really like that point system. And it also then creates almost accountability for staying open-minded and trying new things, because I've had boyfriends, I've been in relationships where I didn't think I was going to like something, and I really have my mind opened. First of all, I opened my mind enough to go and try the activity with an open heart, and then I end up leaving going, that was actually pretty good. I'll do that again. I enjoyed it.
Yep. Yep. So as we wind down, as usual, we're almost at the 10-minute mark. The question being, what do you have a formula for how similar or how different people need to be to have a good relationship? And I'll give you an example what I used to think, which may not. When I first started dating, before I got married, I had a tongue-in-cheek formula, which was, if I ever get married, there's going to be a bedroom for us, there's going to be a room for me, and a room for them. This is before kids, so there's at least 3 bedrooms in the house, so I can have my time when I need it, and I'll go into the room, and that means I need my alone time or whatever I want to do. You have that same thing. It's kind of like the man cave, except the woman's got a cave too, right?
I like
So
that.
when I used to share that, people go, "Oh my God, you're never going to be material for a relationship because you are so independent that you really don't want to share too much with the person." And my point is, even now, that's why I was single for 7 years, is I did not think I could have a relationship without having to give up my independence. Right now, we're putting the moose on the table, the elephants in the room, because this will continue. I can barely find enough time to chat with people who I've matched with to see if there's enough chemistry to meet, or talk on the phone, let alone meet. So this is what I am continuing to be challenged with, is, am I willing to give up the independence that I enjoy to be in a relationship? Is there enough of a payoff to compromise? Is it possible for relationships to be healthy and meaningful when there are so many independent activities or orientations for the person?
I think what you asked about a formula, and I'll start with a simple answer and then break it down a bit. What I said earlier, I think there has to be at least a couple things each week that you really like doing together, right? That require time. And of course, here's the thing: if you're in a relationship where you're living together, you're doing life together. So even those little mundane things, it's still quality time. If you're not living together, you obviously have to enjoy the time you do spend. So there have to be at least a couple of things that you can bond over. But nobody should ever have to give up their independence in a relationship. I think it's so important for both parties to be independent and completely fulfilled in their own. And you wouldn't want somebody to give up their independence to like depend on you, to need you for anything. It's one of these things where the relationship just elevates that experience. And especially for those folks that are in the opposites attract bucket, I think your advice is incredibly important, and self-awareness is crucial. If you want to buy a dog, don't get a cat. Buyer beware. Know that you're picking a potentially more challenging journey. But for those people, and I have a streak of this, I love figuring out and being around people that just operate different. To me, it's magnetic, it's attractive, but also understand what you can go into it knowing yourself, what you can tolerate, what you can't, so that if there's too much independence, that it doesn't develop into incompatibility and resentment. So it's one of those things where I think it can work. You just have to tread carefully. And I think, you have to put a little extra work in to find those happy compromises where both people get that win. Like the vacation scenario with one person scuba dives, the other spends a day at the spa, you have dinner together, or the working out thing, or the introvert extrovert thing. I know somebody who is a social animal. They go out 6 nights a week. Now, the guy they're dating can only do 2 or 3 nights a week. He's not an introvert, but I would say he's a, extroverted introvert. So he likes it to a degree. And he says, go take a friend to this. Like what events do you really want me to be at? I'll be there, but go invite a friend to the rest. And they're okay with that because they understand and appreciate each other's differences. So I'm so glad you brought up the introvert extrovert thing, because that doesn't have to be a deal breaker either. You just have to find your system with that person in that relationship that works. Like that couple with the point system, I thought was really great.
Yeah, it is definitely, I believe, for a good relationship, 80% of that person has to be okay to be that way. 80%. That old adage of, I want to change you, or I see the potential in you and I have to train the man or I have to train the partner. That to me just is like a huge, yellow warning sign,
Red.
because yeah, maybe not just yellow, red. So it's so interesting though that fix it model is so prevalent, right?
Well, I think
Because
a
if
lot of
you're
people do it unconsciously. They're fix-it types, and they don't even know that they're operating in that way. So much of our behavior, you actually need a really close friend to say, you know, I've noticed the pattern, right? That or a good therapist sometimes are the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like we have 5 minutes left. So if you've just tuned in, you can get this show on my YouTube TV channel that houses all past 1,150. What are we? No, it shows over the last 624 consecutive weeks. You can also get access to my free subscribe and membership subscribe now if you'd like to spend a little more time doing some Q&A or have access to all of my Balance Marketplace products. The book 8 Ways to Happiness, #1 bestseller, that I'm going to Canada next week to do some book signings as well as visit my Chinese mom. But I'll still be here bringing you the shows as I broadcast from Canada. There's a separate playlist actually with Straight Talk with Dr. Marissa and
James Hawthorn.
And we have shared with you a plethora of interesting topics, largely due to hearing what you want to hear. So if you have any topics that you'd like us to deal with or address, then please do contact us. You can message Action Man Fitness or Action.
Correct, on Instagram. Yes, at Action Man Fitness. My other life outside of talking dating is physical fitness.
Yes, he's a trainer. If you need any training from James, he's more than happy to work with you. He's also an actor, so keep your eyes out on the big screen because that's what our intentions are for him. So,
thank you.
Final word.
The 80% thing. I agree that you have to be okay with 80% of who that person is and what they like, but it doesn't mean you have to like doing 80% of the things that they like doing, or that you even have to like 80% of their friends. I would say that you have to like doing at least 20% of the things together. Have a couple things that you can do together that you both enjoy equally. But while doing that, you must also be okay with 80% of that person. So I guess that's my formula for compatibility, and as it relates to independence of activities and doing interests.
Yeah. My final word is, if you are in a relationship where 80% of the time you are complaining about what they do or do not want to or do want to do, and there's so much of a focus on what isn't working than what is working, then it's time to let them go, because they deserve to be with someone who likes them for who they are 80% of the time. It always amuses me when I get to work with couples and one person will say, yes, I love them the way they are, or I want someone to love me exactly the way I am, flaws and all. And then they turn around and say, but I don't like this, and this about the other person. So my final word is, are you being what you're asking for? Are you being what you're asking for? And that is it for today's scintillating episode or independent shipping.
Yeah. Don't force a square peg into a round hole. I think we could sum that up with. Sometimes the greatest accomplishment of all is admitting failure and saying, okay, good times, now let's move along. Sometimes that's the best accomplishment of all, when you can admit that it ain't working.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is exactly the purpose of dating, is what I'm really, I'm dating in HD. I've been saying, do you know what that is?
High def.
What HD no. Hope, disappointment, hope, disappointment, hope, disappointment.
Yes. So, aren't we all?
But yeah, hey, we're learning something. We always learn something. What is really important to us? What isn't that important? So it's all about balance. Peace in, peace out, world peace through, inner peace. This is Dr. Marissa and
James Hawthorn. Have a great day, everybody.
Have the best